Uganda national football team. First overseas tour of England. We had been hearing the story of our national football team that went overseas for a tour, and they played barefooted football in England. That story started even before I was born. I used to tell my friends that information technology is very powerful. Some of them did not believe me. I used to tell them that information technology, Radio 𝗙𝗵𝗆, is the one that brought Obote's government down. It brought Amin's government down. So you can see the power of technology, the power of information technology is so powerful that it can bring back, it can bring down a state. When I used to tell my friends, they thought I was joking. And today, if you go to villages, you still hear about Uganda football team who played barefooted in England. The story goes back. I still remember when I was growing up, I used to sit at Wangoo, the fireplace, with my parents. And then my father would tell us the story of those gallant sons of Uganda who traveled to England and played football barefooted. He kept on repeating those stories. And even today, I've not forgotten about those footballers who made us proud, because they did what they really believed in. Don't forget to subscribe so that you don't miss your daily information on Uganda. Let me be clear, and let's get started. In 1956, Uganda undertook a most successful tour of England. Ugandans like football, and they especially follow the Premier League. And the common story that had been going around told when we were growing up that a group of Ugandan footballers were selected to tour England and played against different teams, different football teams. They were the first African team to go overseas for a football tour. And they were really excited. Most of the players was their first time to step into a plane and fly to England for an overseas tour. You can imagine the feeling. We had it when I had to travel for the first time to study abroad. The excitement of being in the plane could be noticed. But at the same time, it injects fear into your system because you don't know whether you are going to reach the destination because you are high up in the sky. But because of the modern technology, it was more easier done for those gentlemen who traveled to England before I was born. I really don't know what sort of plane they used, but that was a very, very exciting experience. When they got to London, to England, the first match they played, they lost 1-10 goals because they were given shoes to play with. This team was used to play barefooted at home. Imagine you arrived in England and they give you boots to play with. It needs a bit of training, and I do understand why they lost. Because boots in itself was something new to them. At home, they were playing barefooted. But they realized later that it was because of the shoes they were putting on why they lost. It was time to make a decision. And they made their decision. The Uganda national teams then decided to play barefooted, despite the fact that the people in England were very kind. They wanted to introduce us to shoes, but at that moment, it was too early for our national football team. It made it difficult for them to perform well. When you're using 𝗙𝗴𝗆 boots, you need to get used to it. And at that moment, when they were in England, they were there for a tour and have to play. There was no time to get used to those boots. And they decided to play football barefoot. The Uganda barefooted cranes is a football team to remember. Uganda did play extra game. They lost some and they won some. But in all cases, they made a good decision to play most of their games barefooted. They then became famous when they beat the England Olympic football team 2-1 with no football boots. And they were known as the Uganda barefooted cranes. With those memories, we could all say the boys did the best they could at that moment of time. It was a different place, a different game, a different year, and still they used the barefoot strategy, what they were used to at home, to win. The overseas tour of England was a key opener, a high opener. We then started to participate in international matches. FUFA became affiliated to the internal association, now known as FIFA and CAF, in 1960. The Uganda Football Association, now known as FUFA, was established a long time ago in 1925 when few sportsmen and keen footballers met to draw the propagation of the game in Uganda. The football game was then introduced by the missionaries from United Kingdom. In 1953, proper representation was introduced within the 4 provinces: Uganda, Eastern, Northern, and Western Uganda, that were affiliated. FUFA and 10 district association and team in a particular provinces were affiliated to the provincial association. In 1926, if we go back, a trophy known as the Gossage Cup was introduced as an annual event for the East African territory. It was only for the East African territory. For Kenya, Tanganyika, Uganda, and Zanzibar. And as you all know, football is the national sport in Uganda. The Uganda national football team is known as the Crane, and is the same Crane that played barefooted during the tour of England. We are very proud of our brothers, and who made the crane what it is today. The crane, as you know, is being governed by the Federation of Uganda Football Association. And all these years, let's be honest with ourselves, we have never qualified for FIFA World Cup finals. I can understand the frustration here. I can understand why we have not qualified for the World Cup final. From the time we got independence, we had been interrupted several times through dark pages in our history. As I said before, that information technology is very powerful. It can bring down a government, and it did several times. Using the information technology, using radio, like Radio 𝗙𝗵𝗆. I used to tell them, I said, Radio 𝗙𝗵𝗆 brought the government of Obote down, the government of Amin down, and is going to bring many governments down because information technology is very powerful. And when you use it to pump lies into the orbit, then people begin to believe that it is true. We had been a dominant force in Africa football, but we lost our way during the dark period of our history. After the military coup in 1971, things began to fall apart. And believe me, it will take a lot of time before we get back to normal, because you remove one leader and you replace it with another dictator. That is the dilemma we are in. We participated in the Africa Cup of Nations in 1978. We became second. In the late 19th century, the sport of association, football, first obtained a foothold in major part of port cities of Eastern Africa and spread into interior with the establishment of railways line, missionary schools, military bases for the colonial armies. The main league in Uganda, spanning at least 3 decades, was the Kampala and District Football League, 𝗙𝗵𝗆. By 1966, the league had 3 tiers, with First Division, Second Division, and Third Division, divided into 2 sections comprising of North zones and South zones. We had Kampala City Council Football Club, Agri Memorial, Army Football Club, 𝗏𝗏𝗆 𝗏𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗀, Express Football Club, Kampala Police Football Club, Kampala District Bus Services, Luo Union, Wangoo Old Boys, Mulago Hospital, Prison FC Kampala. The formation of the National League was a turning point in Uganda football. You can imagine how many clubs they registered, how many clubs we had in Uganda, even up to today. The national football team, first overseas tour of England in 1956, as I said before, was an eye-opener. It is, and it will take us a long time before we get back to normal. But let me tell you something. With the spirit of Ugandan as footballers, and as football is concerned, we will be back even before you know. But let's be careful. Football in itself is a nice game, but don't let it bring down your house, destroy your family, and turn you into something you never want to be, a gambler. Let's just be who we are. It is just a game. And thank you for listening. And remember, I will be back.